I read in your book a segment where you explained the difference between human intelligence, and technical intelligence. There is also SIGINT, signal intelligence, same as TechInt. So you were saying that all this intelligence that is being gathered, it needs to be analyzed, but apparently there is a problem with the people who are doing the analysis. What's exactly wrong with that, with the way intelligence is gathered and the way it's analyzed?
Analyzing intelligence in countries like Afghanistan is an incredible, complicated matter, because so many things happen for reasons that we do not understand. You have to have a really good knowledge of the way people live, of the way people think, of their cultural and religious backgrounds to be able to analyze whichever kind of intelligence. And we had analysts that were far too young, that didn't have the background, that didn't understand a thing of Afghanistan. Sometimes those analysts worked from The Hague, analyzing intelligence from Afghanistan, and they were very proud anthropologists or whatever they were, but there were no specialists of Afghanistan or Uruzgan, and they should not have been analyzing whatever they were confronted with. And there is another thing, most of the intel was analyzed by analysts, but there was always an interpreter in between. So first of all, you need to know whether you can trust your interpreter. And most interpreters had their own agenda and their own reasons to put things in a certain light. So all kinds of intelligence that came from Uruzgan were in fact quite unreliable, but we still based a lot of actions upon that intelligence. And that was another thing that was, in my opinion, completely wrong. So if you want to do something with intelligence in Afghanistan, you need people with feet on the ground. You need people that can tell you, stop. No one is digging in an idea over there. That is someone busy with his irrigation system. And this sounds extremely stupid and extremely simple, in fact. I mean, everyone can think of it. But I've seen it 1,000 times, that kind of thing was misinterpreted, and there was even action deployed based on that kind of intelligence, analyzed by people that should not analyze that information, and well, that created a disaster.
There is another segment of your book where you are basically saying that foreign forces are forcing their values on locals. What do you mean by that?
Well, quite honestly, I do not really remember which kind of the book that is, but it doesn't matter. I think if you go to a country like Afghanistan, you should be, as a foreign Western country, you should be very humble. You should be very attentive. You should be very willing to learn. You shouldn't tell those people to adapt to your values. Why should you? I mean, you probably has probably something to do with the Pashtunwali, as I talk about. I mean, we are so convinced that our democratic system is the system, the only system that could help society to grow better or to be effective. I doubt that. I think our democracies are too young to yet say that they are good. Whereas something like the Pashtunwali, the rules by which most people in Afghanistan live, they exist for 1,000 years. And those rules, column rules, have value to me, for at least they have proven themselves over a period of 1,000 years. That means something. And I think that it is rather arrogant to walk into a country that has a system that functions for thousands of years, 1,000 years, and then to tell them you need a democracy. You should at least be capable to prove that your own democracy is a perfect system. And I doubt that. I have never come across someone who could really convince me that a democracy is super, is very good. How can we then walk into another country and tell people that their system is not the system to live by, that they should adapt to another system? I think that's pretty arrogant and wrong to do that. You should at least take an interest in, for example, the Pashtunwali and say, well, what is it? How does it function? Does it work? And my answer to those questions, or at least to the last question, is, well, it worked perfectly as far as I could see. I was safe walking the streets of Tarinkout or Shora all by my lonely because the Pashtunwali protected me. That system is so ingrained, it is so deeply and honestly accepted by people that I was safe simply because of the Pashtunwali. And all Afghan people that I met would have protected me against, for example, a couple of Pakistani that wished to kidnap me or whatever, because they made me safe. I think that's proof of having to deal with a pretty good system that we should not change overnight unless the Afghan people want to change it. But I've never heard someone who was eager to trade his Pashtunwali for our democracy. And I think we should respect that, and we didn't.
One of the things that I noticed about your experience in Uruzgan in your book is your friend Wahdat. You talked about him, and you said that before deploying to Afghanistan, you tried to learn some Pashto. And once you arrived in Afghanistan, you noticed that the people who are working with you, the Afghans, like your friend Wahdat, most of them didn't speak Pashto. While the population in Uruzgan, especially in those districts where you were, they're predominantly Pashtun. So obviously you are a foreigner, you are someone who is alien to the local people, and then you are accompanied by local soldiers who are also speaking a different language. Did that create any problems?
I think it was a major problem. Not only did the Afghan National Army soldiers that were deployed to Afghanistan, to Uruzgan, most of them did not speak Pashto, which was pretty stupid. And we were there partly to train the Afghan army, and the first thing we should have said to the Afghan army commanders is, well, if you want to make a change in Uruzgan, please send as many soldiers that speak Pashto to Uruzgan and send soldiers to speak Dari to another province. But there was no one in the Dutch army that could even make the distinction between Pashto and Dari. So no one cared about that, and no one addressed the problem. And so we worked with colleagues, the Afghan National Army, who didn't speak Pashto, which is a strange thing, if you ask me.
One of the topics that really stuck with me while I was reading your book is when you refer to the concept of original sin. You said that in the Quran there is no concept as original sin because it's obviously a concept in the West. It's a Christian concept. And as I understood, you were saying basically that Western culture and society, Western consciousness has this concept of original sin, while people over there don't have it. How does this actually impact intervention in Afghanistan?
Well, I think to my opinion, it's a very interesting subject. I mean, it's a religious subject, but I was made aware of it by a Yemeni friend that I worked with, a Yemeni soldier, a captain. I operated a lot with him. He was an atheist, and he talked about the original sin in Christian religion, and the absence of original sin in Islam. And he said that could very well be, first of all, one of the things that separates Islam from Christianity, but it could as well make for the constant feeling of guilt that Western people, Christian or not, carry with them, because that feeling of original sin is with us for like 1500, 2000 years, so long that it's probably completely ingrained. I mean, it is a bit strange that we constantly feel the desire to help other people, that we feel obligated to get out of a country and try to change Uruzgan, to call something. And he convinced me more or less to at least think about the notion of original sin be the ground for that. And well, I gave it a lot of thought, and I put it in my book as well, because I think it's strange as well that we feel this constant desire to make the world better just to make it better. I mean, if you really want to make the world better, you start with yourself, and you put a whole different kind of action on display. While yet we are just shouting and shouting that we want to change things, we have to change things, but what do we do effectively? Very little. But we can still be proud of ourselves because we at least try to make the world a better place. And well, if we look at Uruzgan, we made it a worse place. And so that's basically why I put the original sin in there, because my Yemeni friends started with it, and I found it an interesting thing to at least drag on about a bit.